In light of the recent ruling, do the panellists believe that local government decisions are best made with divine guidance or not?
This is the case of Bideford Town Council. The National Secular Society, atheist councillor Clive Bone complained that it was a denial of his human rights, that they should have prayers. Mr. Justice Ousley said that that wasn't an issue of human rights, but there was no statutory power permitting the practice to continue, and therefore, on the face of it, in that council, maybe elsewhere, it is at the moment illicit, although the government suggested it might change the localism bill in order to accommodate the right of local authorities, if they wish to, local councils, to have prayers. Mehdi Hasan, what do you make of it?
It's a very interesting ruling, and I find myself slightly torn, because on the one hand, I am a believer. I'm not an atheist. I don't think faith should be pushed out of the public square and into the home. I think people should have a right to pray in public, talk about faith in public. There's no reason why politicians shouldn't be men and women of faith. On the other hand, when you look at this ruling, I've been looking at some of the news coverage of it today, the judge didn't say that they couldn't pray in council. What he said was it can't be a formal part of the proceedings. Therefore, it can't be something that everyone has to come and attend before anything gets going or any decisions are made. In fact, he said, quote, the saying of prayers in a local authority chamber before a formal meeting of such a body is lawful, provided councillors are not formally summoned to attend. And that's a key quote that's been missing from a lot of the coverage today. He hasn't said you can't pray. He's just saying you can't make everyone else pray as well, because there may be atheists, there may be Christians who don't want to pray at that moment. And I think those of us who are people of faith, if we want to get along with each other, rub up against each other in the right way in this country, we've got to be very careful about imposing our beliefs on others. So I'm all for faith in the public square, but not in a way which makes people of no faith uncomfortable or feel like they're being excluded. So I think the judge has got it just about right with his ruling.
Ann Widdecombe.
Well, I think what we can do is welcome the judge's common sense in saying it's not a matter of human rights. The idea that your human rights are infringed if somebody else is praying in the vicinity does seem to me to be stretching the imagination a bit. But I think, again, one needs to look at the nuances of what the judge has said. Parliament begins every day, as everybody here will know, with prayers. You do not have to attend prayers. If your business is coming on immediately after prayers, you wait outside if you don't want to attend and come in time for your business. And it seems to me that it's quite proper. It's a formal part of the day's proceedings. It's quite proper for this to be for prayers at local councils to be a formal part of the day's proceedings. I don't suppose it's ever the case that anybody ever had to attend.
David Lammy.
Well, I'm glad if it's the case that this isn't about the individual's human rights, because I would want to assert our collective rights. And I do think that this country has a history. It is largely a Christian country. And therefore, I think it's completely normal that in council proceedings, in the House of Commons, in many schools up and down the country, people gather for prayer. But I also think it's right that if you are Muslim or Jewish or of no faith, you do not have to take part in that practice. I do worry about an aggressive secularism that is drowning out the ability of people of faith to live with that faith, and also caricatures people of faith in a particular way. And that's what I'd want to look at the judgment carefully, because Mehdi has read it and I certainly have not. But I do think our collective rights and our collective history is important.
But David, don't you think... I share David's view. I worry about aggressive secularism too and the misrepresentation of faith. But what's interesting is Anne's mentioned the commons starting with prayers. You've mentioned the collective Christian heritage of the country. If you look at a country like the United States, where there's a much more formal separation between religion and state, they actually have more thriving religious communities in a country like that than we have here. Having Christianity in the House of Commons or in local government proceedings hasn't helped the Christian church very much. And there's an argument saying if you're pro-church, you might actually want to disconnect the church from some of these official business and allow it to thrive in a much more separate and independent way, as it does in the United States.
Sir Menzies Campbell.
Well, I'm an occasional Presbyterian, so I have to be careful that I don't claim too much authority in this particular area.
We are, of course, talking about English councils.
There are councils, and indeed there are parliaments in this country, where prayers are conducted not always by a minister of the Christian religion, but by ministers of other religions. Why? Because we have a diverse society in which there are many people of different faiths. And I have to say, I don't have any objection to the notion that at the moment that the council's meetings are formally convened, that there should be a period of reflection accompanied by prayers. I really do. The House of Commons has been mentioned. The Speaker processes in. He comes in with a mace. The mace is the authority of the House of Commons. The proceedings, therefore, are formal in every sense of the word, except, of course, neither the press nor the public are allowed to observe us at prayer. I'm not quite sure why. And therefore, although I understand the nuance of the judge's ruling, I rather think this is unnecessary. I think organisations should have the right to determine for themselves, institutions should have the right to determine for themselves whether or not they have prayers, and they can do it very simply on the basis of a democratic vote.
We're in a Church of England school, but the audience here comes from all over the place. Who is glad that the judge ruled as he did, that it would be at the moment unlawful? We don't know whether the law changes or not. Who's glad that it is apparently in Bideford now at least unlawful? Would you put your hands up? Who thinks that, as you've heard from three members of the panel, that it's a good idea to have prayers at the start and it shouldn't be an issue? Would you put your hands up? Well, in Crewkerne, in this audience, overwhelmingly, this audience favours the right to prayers at the beginning of council meetings.